straight to Song of Solomon I go.
Your teeth are like a flock of sheep, just shorn. Each has his twin. Not one of them is alone. A nice way of saying you got a full set of teeth there.
Imagine a man telling you that your teeth are like freshly shorn sheep.
You don't have a single snaggletooth, girl.
No gaps detected.
And this is why it took me so long to figure out that I was gay.
I probably would have read the Bible a lot more if I had heard that. Long time no see.
I know. It's been 15, 20 years, something like that. Like 20 years.
Say it quieter, please. That makes me feel like so old. I think we've stayed connected on social media, but
yeah,
kind of.
Yeah, we've been like connected on social media. But I guess it's been like since then, since we like saw each other or spoke, I think. Yeah. Yeah. So a lot has gone on. We sort of weirdly lived like kind of parallel lives though. Like we both like married narcissistic church boys and got divorced and
you know what? We got that out of the way earlier in our lives.
Yeah.
Ish. So we can be,
so we can move
free.
on now.
Yeah, I want to know everything that you have been up to. How's life outside of Arkansas?
Amazing. I could not get out of Arkansas fast enough. Like I probably never even told you this because it was like a big secret at the time because it was very taboo. But like, I remember I had a very distinct moment around the age of 12 years old where it was like during some sermon in church about how like, women are supposed to like, men should go to college, but women should stay home and like homeschool the kids and do all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember looking around the church and assessing my options and thinking to myself, I would rather die. How am I going to get out of here? And the way that men did it was they went to college and then they got jobs. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to have to do that, but no one's going to like allow me to do that. So how am I going to do that? And so I just like, do you remember that book? What was it, like the classical education book that all the homeschool moms had? What was it called?
That the title? Or was this?
She was at all of the homeschool conventions, and it was just a book on like how to give your kid a classical education, and I forget the name of it.
I can think of the cover.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch me Google it.
Yeah,
right
Google it. And there was like this list of books that you're supposed to read by like the end of your high school career. Anyway, I was like, I assume that everyone in public school is doing all of this. Therefore, let me read all these books, learn Latin, learn calculus, do all of this stuff, because then I'll be able to like get a scholarship and go to college. Because otherwise there's no way I could go because no one's going to help me. So I just like studied my ass off. And then I got like really good test scores and everything. So I like was able to leave and like go to school. But yeah.
Let's rewind. How did you get good test scores? Because my homeschool experience was subpar.
No, I know. Nobody helped at all. It was like, literally, it was like this book that was like everything you're supposed to learn. And I like read the book. I wrote down everything. I like made my own curriculum because I was like, this is my like little nefarious 12-year-old mind. I was like, I'm going to have to do all this. And I was like psycho about it. I like read the dictionary and wrote down every word I didn't know so that I could like learn for the vocabulary SATs. Like no one assisted me with this. Amazing. Don't get me wrong. This is not to give credit to any.
Okay. That was all you. 100%. Okay, I'm looking at two different books. The Well-Trained Mind.
Yes.
A Guide to Classical Education by Susan White. Okay.
That's the one.
Let me pull this up here.
Yeah.
Amazon's not looking.
Yeah, that was the one.
They love to use the word trained in effing everything.
Yeah. Well, exactly. People aren't supposed to be people. They're supposed to be like molded like statues. I don't know.
Right. It's like a well-trained wife, how to train up your child, the well-trained mind.
Yeah.
Here we go. Let me go back over here, see if I can share.
Yeah, I remember I was like 14, 15 years old, and I read The Ecclesiastical History of the English People by the Venerable Bede. And then I was speaking to somebody who was in college, And I was like, oh yeah, here's what I'm reading. And they were like, you're reading that? Like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, well, it said in this book I'm supposed to be reading this.
Right.
I
Is it
don't
this
know.
one? Can you see what I'm?
It's like it's the three dots. It's loading. Oh yeah,
What
yeah,
the hell?
that's it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I see it. That's it.
The well-trained mind.
Hmm.
See, the real gap is the fact that the mother is pictured here
Yeah,
helping the child.
right, exactly.
That's a lie. That's herein lies the lie.
Yeah. The mothers don't,
So,
I mean, I won't say none of them, but most of the mothers I knew also like didn't have a college education. They didn't have like the ability to actually teach you this stuff.
right.
Yeah. They
I
sort
know
of
my
bought you the
mom
books
only
and said,
had a high school.
yeah. My mom went to like 1 or 2 years of college and then got married and dropped out.
Yeah,
So,
I remember, like you said, it was like the men could go to college and the women didn't. But sometimes the like older girls would end up going to college, but it was widely talked about they were going to get their MRS degree, their Mrs.
exactly.
degree. So
Yeah.
they were only going to husband hunt,
Yes.
fully planning on dropping out when they met
Once they
someone they
found one.
wanted to reproduce with.
Right. And they would go for like a limited number of degrees. Like it was okay if you were going to go for like teaching,
Hmm.
elementary education, or like
Right.
liberal arts, or like liberal arts, because then you would know you would be able to homeschool your kids better, or like,
That's right. That's
something
right.
like that.
You would be a hot commodity in a homeschool co-op with a liberal arts degree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I don't know, we never did the homeschool co-ops though, really.
Yeah.
Like when you and I met with which I'm coming back to that
Yeah.
when we met because as we discussed the other day, my memory is really foggy
Yeah.
when it
Yeah.
comes
We
to a
got
lot
to
of
go
stuff
through
in
that.
that particular.
Yeah.
But we weren't allowed to do like co-ops and socialize in that way, really. Like I know a lot of homeschoolers would go a couple days a week and like there'd be one mom to teach math or science or whatever, and they would
Hmm.
kind of rotate. No, 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 no. No, we weren't allowed to do that.
Yeah.
I was always jealous
Yeah. Why you
of
weren't
that.
allowed to? What was their issue with it?
Yeah. Outside influence
Yeah.
of like friends,
Yeah.
the world, you know? And look how I turned out. Fully
Yeah.
heathen. A full Jezebel sits before you. So I guess none of those protective measures worked.
I know.
Sorry.
I'm
I
surprised
tried
that like
so hard.
you and I were allowed to be friends. Because like even like we were allowed to go do the homeschool stuff, but we weren't really allowed to like spend time with kids that didn't go to our church. Like even the other homeschool kids
Mm-hmm.
were not like acceptable. Like you guys in
Right.
my church's opinion, you guys and the rest of the other people who didn't go to our church, our specific church, were also all going to hell. Like,
Right.
you know.
Wasn't it? But I feel like it was like pretty similar, if not the same denomination. Like, what did your church identify as?
We were the church, we were Church of Christ, but like a
Okay,
very,
that's why.
yeah, not even the regular version of Church of Christ, like a much more strict version of the Church of Christ than is usual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a subset of, yeah. It was, it was almost because you were allowed to wear jeans. I have a picture. One of the ones that I sent you.
Yeah.
But I have them here because I can share them so we
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
re-traumatize ourselves,
Wow.
like re-traumatize ourselves by looking at those.
Yeah.
But you were allowed to wear jeans. I definitely wasn't. When we met and ended up playing
Hmm.
volleyball together on the
Yeah.
homeschool team, those were shorts, but they were like long shorts. They were almost
Yeah.
like culottes. That's the only
They
reason
like,
I was allowed to wear them.
yeah, they had to like cover your knee. They had to come to like the middle of your kneecap, if I recall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did. But
Yeah.
I don't know about you. Personally, I rolled them a couple
Yeah.
times because, I was a little hoochie mama.
Hmm. No,
I
I
was
did too.
trying
I did
to, I
too.
was,
And then they would, if somebody saw you or, they would tell you to,
there would be hell to pay.
yeah.
Yeah, because why do you need to show the top of your kneecap?
Well,
You're
I don't know
tempting
about
the boys.
you, but kneecaps are a particularly erotic part of the body.
just snort water. They are,
Yeah.
they're so suggestive.
I know.
They're even more
Yeah.
so than the clavicle, and that's saying a lot.
Oh
The
my God,
kneecap.
oh my God. I forget the name of this guy, but it was like the father of one of the girls on the team said something to me one time because I had my sleeves rolled up, and he pulled me aside and he said something to me about uh how shoulders were so tempting, and his wife's shoulders were one of his favorite parts of her body. He's telling me this. This is a grown man. I am like 14 years old, probably, something in
A
there.
minor, yeah.
Yeah. And he's explaining to me about the things he likes about his wife's body and how alluring my shoulders were and why I needed to like roll my sleeves down.
I wonder if that man's in prison yet.
Yeah.
Because why is he sharing his kink with a 14-year-old girl?
I know. I was like, that's something you
questionable.
should keep to yourself, sir.
Yeah, we don't need to know that. And also, why are you looking at my shoulders then?
I know. Look
What a
away.
weirdo. Please, avert your eyes. If thy eye offend thee, pluck it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Allow me to pluck it for you.
Yeah.
I don't actually remember. This is bad. I blocked out so much because
Yeah.
#trauma. I don't remember first getting involved even with the homeschool volleyball team.
Yeah.
I think it's because one or more of my brothers was allowed to play basketball or baseball
Yeah.
or something. I don't even remember
Yeah.
what all
Probably
what all
basketball.
homeschool teams
Yeah.
were there. Probably. And I think that's when they discovered, oh shit, there's a homeschool volleyball
Yeah.
team.
I also don't
But
remember.
you weren't there my first year.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't remember getting started either. I also played basketball. I have a lot clearer memories of the basketball team, but like the volleyball team was like particularly bad for me. I have like a couple very, very vivid memories of like shitty things that happened, but otherwise I don't remember much.
That's how that it makes me think. I know with so much me having so many gaps with volleyball too, it makes me
Yeah.
think that more things happen that we don't like we both have blocked out.
Yeah, that was a really toxic environment.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Listen. I hate this next. I'm going to share a picture. I don't know if I sent this one to you or not because you're not
Go ahead.
in it.
Ah, yes.
I want to throw up right now.
Oh my God.
Look at this.
Look at you right in the middle.
Oh,
man.
God. First thing I would like to point out is that the layering of the shirts under the jerseys.
Yeah. Were you? Oh my
'Cause,
God.
like,
It's something's occurring to me. How old are you my age or are you like a little bit younger? A year or two younger?
I was thinking about that. I was thinking about that earlier too. I'm 35 now. July is my birthday.
Okay. I
88.
am, yeah, also 35. But this is I think the junior team, and so I wonder if like maybe I was a grade older than
Maybe.
you and then you came up to the senior team because I remember Aaron, who I forgot and then remembered when you sent the pictures over.
Yeah.
Aaron was a little younger than me too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that feels right.
Yeah.
That feels right because I don't think I would have been on the senior. I was on the JV, I think, my first year.
Yeah.
But I picked number 6. This was my little act of rebellion.
Yeah.
Because the number 6 is a bad, evil number
Yeah.
where we come from.
Were you the
Mark of the
one?
Beast. And
Were you the
probably.
the
Why?
one I was talking to who like had a book about witchcraft that was like hidden under your bed or something? There was one homeschool girl who told me that at the time. I don't remember who it was.
I did. I had some.
Okay.
I've had that. I don't know if it was me who shared that with you because
Yeah.
I'm sure there were several of us probably. But I
Yeah.
did, and some rebellious music like
Yeah.
Three Doors Down. So
I had a Destiny's Child CD that I hid under my mattress.
that's where I hid mine.
Yeah.
And I had one of the little like Walkmans. That makes me sound older than I am. I think I just didn't have
Yeah.
access to technology is what it was. It had to be old school like that.
Yeah.
But whew, It's funny because sometimes I'll be out and I'll hear a certain song that was on that particular album, but being on like a Walkman, sometimes it would skip, and or it
Uh,
would like play the same little section over and over. And
yeah,
when I hear songs, they'll be playing normally, but in my brain, they're still stuck,
yeah,
in the year 2005 or some shit.
yeah. Oh my God.
With the lights off, hiding under my sheet, listening to this music like a little rebel.
Yeah, it was the CD player with the headphones,
Mm.
which I don't even know where I got that from, to be honest with you, because I don't think I was supposed to have it. I had a whole little stash of things. I'd like ripped a hole in my mattress and I put stuff under there. I also had like candy
That's
because I wasn't
genius.
allowed to eat sugar.
Oh, yeah, we weren't even allowed to have chocolate. We had to use carob chips, not chocolate chips. Why?
Mm,
There's this so disgusting.
yeah, they are gross.
Enjoyment is a sin. My
Yeah,
mattress was like one of those old school mattresses that had the old springs, like the actual springs under,
yeah,
like on the box springs. And so I could shove stuff up in there.
yeah, yeah. And
You learn to
I
be real
apparently,
sneaky.
when I left, I left a bunch of stuff in there. I don't even remember. I don't remember. I obviously I didn't take it with me. I didn't take much with me. And my
Yeah,
sister found my stash, and so she told me she would go up in my room and like listen to my music and eat my candy after I had left.
you're
And so I'm like, well,
welcome.
good for you. Good for you.
I love
Yeah.
that she knew where to look.
Yeah.
Uh, she's like, this is great. So your parents didn't throw all your stuff away? As soon as I ran away with my
Mm.
like garbage bag of stuff, my mom like when I say cleaned house, took everything out of my room, got rid of literally everything
Oh my
of
God.
mine. Anything, any
Yeah.
reminder of my existence, she trashed.
Wow. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
my parents were weirdly kind of the opposite. They saved everything. And like actually in like the past maybe year or two, I we've sort of like started talking a little bit again in like a good way. I think they've been going to therapy. They
Hmm.
actually are like, I don't know. Anyway, there's been
Oh,
some
we
like
love to hear it.
progress there. Yeah. But uh my mom saved everything to the point of like when I got married originally, they it was to a guy who went to the same church as me, but he had left and I had
Hmm.
left. And so my parents didn't approve. And so they didn't come
That
to
was
the
my
wedding.
exact situation.
Yeah, so they
Hmm.
didn't come to the wedding. And he actually called to try to get blessing. And my dad said no
Hmm.
because, quote, he wasn't a godly leader because he allowed me to wear immodest clothing. So,
Tank tops
however,
or
well, yeah, like, oh, I think at the time I was doing like bikini modeling or something on the internet. So there was like,
ooh,
yeah,
floozy, an
yeah,
absolute floozy.
yeah. But I had sent them an invitation to the wedding. I knew they wouldn't come, but I didn't want them to be able to say, like,
Right, they
you
weren't
know,
invited.
right, they weren't invited. So I sent them an invitation. And then we got divorced. And then this was literally when we started talking recently. My mom was like, "Hey, I still have the invitation you sent to the wedding. I don't know what to do with it. I don't want to get rid of it, but it seems weird to have it now. What should I do with it?" And I was like, "You should burn it." Like,
Immediately.
yeah. You should burn it.
In the kitchen sink. The
Yeah.
quickest way possible. That's weird that like yeah,
Yeah.
she's like super sentimental about stuff. I wonder,
I
did they
guess.
think that you were going to come back?
Yeah.
I actually don't know your escape story.
Yeah, so it was like okay, so I was like, okay, I got to get a degree, blah blah blah. I had applied to all of these different schools, and my parents were like very much like girls are supposed to live at home until you get married.
Hmm.
And it was just like so logistically complicated, me trying to get out. I even had like other family members who weren't in the church who were like, okay, like I'll help drive you to the airport, all this, all that, whatever. But there was this one Church of Christ school in Florida that was in Tampa, Florida. A lot of people went to. And it was like a 2-year school. It's not accredited. It's kind of a bullshit school. But anyway,
What is
a
it?
lot of people
What
went
is
to
it?
go get their MRS degree.
Hmm.
And I somehow convince them that it would be okay if I go to this school. And I was like, all right, once I'm out, then I can like get
Yep.
out,
Do whatever.
better.
Yep.
So I went to this school. I went for a while, and then at the end of the year, end of the semester, I literally packed all my shit up in my car, drove. I like transferred to Western Kentucky University because it's the only place that will take this school's credits that I knew of. So I like drove, I moved there. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't even tell the school I was leaving. I just like went and like got a like I rented like a closet of a room. I paid like $185 a month, and I got a job at Walgreens and like moved to Kentucky. And then everybody
Amazing.
freaked out. Like everybody freaked out. That was getting calls from the school. I was getting calls from my parents. And also I was like, I stopped going to church. My parents freaked out. People from the church were like people I didn't even know how they got my number. Were calling me,
Yeah.
texting me. Like someone showed up at my door. I literally was like, if you people don't leave me alone, I am going to file a restraining
What?
order. Like you gotta get the hell away from me. But
So
it was really
inappropriate. But
crazy.
well, we know how they got your number because you were definitely on at least half a dozen prayer lists
Yeah.
with your number.
Yeah.
Same
So
thing happened. How long after you moved to Kentucky did you end up getting married? Because I guess I thought that you got married pretty quickly.
I I didn't get I got well, the guy I married, I met there in Kentucky. I was
Oh, okay.
21 when we met, I think 20 or 21, something like that. He was 10 years older than me, so not a red flag at all. Um, but anyway, we didn't I actually, when I met him, I was spot on. I thought he was a fuck boy and I didn't want to have anything to do with him. So I actually like pegged him from the start, but then he was like trying to win me over and be all nice and whatever. And so anyway, we wound up dating for a long time. I didn't get married until I was 27, but he and
Mm.
I dated on and off until that point. Um, yeah. So it was pretty early.
You knew your gut.
Yeah.
You knew in your gut, but you know
Yeah.
he spent a long time manipulating, probably.
I got actually warned by like ex-girlfriends and other people that knew him and blah blah blah. And I sort of like dismissed them because these were people who still went to that church, so I just assumed that like
Oh
their
yeah,
values were just that was why, like because they were just
right.
religious, it wasn't valid. But
That makes sense.
yeah.
The same. So it's so weird. We did really live parallel lives because the
Yeah.
same thing happened. It was like I ended up marrying someone who went to the same church that I
Yeah.
thought he had gotten out. Like, ugh,
Tell me if it's just me, but like
such a waste.
yeah. And I don't want to paint anyone with a broad brush, but I feel like a lot of these guys that like leave those churches, they don't want to be like personally boxed in by the rules. They don't want to follow the rules, but they also don't want to like give up any of the privilege that they had in that church. So they become almost like an even
Bingo.
worse version. Like it's like the combination of like those two worlds of I have no rules and no restrictions, but I'm also going to keep all of this like
Yeah.
I'm the man and this is what I deserve and like put the two together, you know?
Yeah. They keep everything that benefits them in
Yeah.
the religious patriarchy. It's like they want to
Yeah,
drink beer, but then also have a submissive wife.
exactly. Right. And they want you
That,
to have
yeah,
a
they want to
job.
be
They don't want to have to like be a provider.
right.
However, they don't
Right.
want to have to clean up or do anything.
Or
Yeah.
yeah, or raise their own children or
Yeah.
contribute in that way at all, or just be a decent human being. I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah, the epitome of like have your cake and eat it too is
Yeah.
kind of the mentality. And they get the thing, and the standards are so different anyway when you're in the church that when you get
Yeah.
out, for us to go off script and off book for what the standards are for us
Yeah.
looks like even the smallest change looks crazy different.
Yeah.
Like, for example, going from wearing skirts all the time to wearing pants, people are going to be able to be like, oh my God, she's no longer this, and this. But for the
Yeah.
men, they can be out of it. They can be doing whatever they want any other day of the week and then show up to church looking the same.
Yeah.
or not
Yeah.
even show up to church. If you just see them out and about, it's pretty much the same. There's such a stark difference in the standard for men and women in the church. So when you get out, I think the difference is pretty noticeable.
Yeah, it is for sure. And even like on the flip side, like I knew confidently, like I didn't want one of these like church guys who thinks he's like the Lord of you or whatever. And
Right.
a lot of the men who went to my church were just literally awful people. And when I got out and you're talking to dating this guy who's like left that and isn't that bad, right? He's like on pay,
Right.
he's like, women are allowed to have jobs. And you're like, oh my
Ooh,
gosh.
progressive.
And
Is it warm in here?
what I figured out eventually was like good by comparison doesn't mean good. Like it
Right.
just means yeah. It's not as bad as that.
Yep. Right. Yeah. God, that's such a good point. Because your baseline is so
Your
effed up
baseline is so
anyway.
low. Yeah.
You're like, oh, he's a little less controlling than what I'm
Yeah.
used to. Like I'm allowed to have an opinion about something instead of nothing. I mean, that's a
Amazing.
win. Why shouldn't I marry this
Yeah.
person?
Yeah.
Look at us now,
Oh, look at us
divorced.
go. I
I'm
mean,
gonna go back and.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't regret it. I feel like I went through everything that I needed to go through to like teach me the lessons to be who I am now. I don't think I would have gotten
Yeah.
here in a less uh conflictual environment. I don't know.
Right. That's true. I think sometimes, well, first I've had people ask me, like, oh, do you believe the way that you believe now? Or actually, they don't ask me. They tell me
Hmm.
the reason you are the way that you are, the reason you believe what you believe now is because of how extreme you were
Yeah,
raised.
right.
As if I'm not capable of
Hmm.
independent thinking or critical thinking outside of that. I do think
Yeah.
the like the extreme conditions in which I was
Mm.
raised pushed me to get out of it. Whereas a lot of times it holds people back because it's so
Yeah.
restrictive. But for
Yeah.
some like you and me, it's like
Yeah.
an even bigger push. Like there's no fucking way I can stay in
Hmm.
here
Well, and it
and
makes you
survive. I
analyze
would rather die.
everything. Yeah.
Everything.
Oh,
I just wanted to throw this up here for shits
oh
and
my
gigs.
word. There's me looking disassociated in the back.
Checked out. Do you know what oh my god, I can't. I'm triggered by myself. I am triggering me. Actually some of these girls, we were talking the other day, like who did we play volleyball with, and we couldn't remember
Yeah.
a lot. But a couple of these girls here actually live here still, and I've seen them at the
Mm-hmm.
gym and stuff. So
Oh, wow.
some of them are around, and I don't think that they're wrapped up in
Yeah.
the cold life
Yeah. Some of them are,
anymore.
though.
But have you
Yeah.
heard the term like the cult gaze or the cult stare? It's like when they talk about the Duggar women have it, or like if you look at the more like
Yeah.
women in the Mormon church, they have it. That's what your face is giving right here, and I
Yeah.
don't
The
mean that in
dead
a mean
behind the
way,
eyes.
but like
No, yeah.
the dead eyes. Yeah,
Yep.
100%.
Yep.
That's
It's like
it makes
I'm
me
here, but
sad.
I'm not here.
Shall we talk about this?
Oh, the fateful day.
The
Was
day.
this that day? I don't know.
I
I feel like it was.
I feel like it was because I feel like we probably wouldn't have
Yeah.
been allowed to even
Yeah. And I'm wearing
be,
like
be right here.
street clothes
Yeah.
in
Did you
this.
change? Was this after a game?
I
And
so
you
my
changed?
recollection, yeah, was we had gone to a game somewhere far away, 1 or 2 hours away. I would usually drive and people would ride with me because it was like people had to go and I drove my parents' minivan and because my mom didn't really want to drive my siblings everywhere. So I would drive my siblings everywhere. And so I would usually drive to the games and we were out to eat after the game. I had somewhere to go. I really don't remember the circumstances, but I remember that I left the restaurant to go outside by myself to get something. Maybe it was to get clothes to change or something. I don't remember, but I went to my car for some reason. I came back. The volleyball coach lost her mind and was like, how dare you go outside without adult supervision? You didn't even ask permission to do that, blah, 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 this and that. Your parents would be so upset. Uh, your parents would never allow that. And I was like looking at her like crazy, like, what do you mean my parents wouldn't allow that? They literally have me driving without supervision everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
Because I'm the oldest daughter, like it's my job to like caravan.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, if they would allow it, then they're like bad parents or something. I forget. Anyway, she lost her mind. And the assistant coach went to my church and was trying to convert Mrs. Farr to our church. And so she apparently didn't want her to think that like all the kids at our church were bad. So she like piled on. And I was like, what the heck is happening here? So then I was in the bathroom. I think I was talking to you and Aaron. And I was like pissed about it and being like, I drive
Yep,
everywhere. I'm always out
naturally.
by myself. My parents
Yeah.
don't care, blah, blah, something, something. And then the lady who went to my church, her daughter was like in the stall and came out and heard and then told her mom that we were talking about her. And then, so anyway, so it
Oops.
was like a huge thing. There was like yelling in the parking lot. And then after that, um, Miss Farr, called around to all of the moms to say not to let the kids ride with me anymore. And so no one was allowed to
Mm-hmm.
ride with me anymore at the games, except for you. I don't know why you missed out on that. I'm really surprised that you were still allowed to ride with me.
I I must have lied. I don't know, like, because I don't understand either,
Yeah.
because I was already not allowed to do anything. Like when I got grounded, I would be
Yeah.
grounded from like reading, literally, because I already didn't have any privileges.
Yeah.
And so something must have happened. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been allowed to continue volleyball, much less ride with you. So I don't know if
Yeah.
they missed that call or what.
Yeah. The only thing I think is like,
But
yeah, your mom must not have been told or something. I don't know.
yeah,
But
maybe she wasn't on the call list.
yeah.
But I do remember after that we were associated together because I think we were probably both bitching in the bathroom to some
Yeah.
degree, or I was at least like validating you.
Yeah.
Because then I also got labeled as like the bad child, the bad like influence. And some of the other girls on the volleyball team, I remember telling me like, hey, we're not allowed to be, my parents said I can't be friends with you anymore because you're a bad influence. And I was like, I don't do anything. I
Yeah.
wearing these long short culottes is the most heathen thing that I do. Like
Yeah.
to anyone's knowledge, not the stuff hidden under my mattress. No one knew about that,
Yeah.
but you know,
Yeah.
like what do you mean I'm a bad influence? So that hurt.
Maybe that's why your mom didn't get called. They just decided that because my mom didn't
They
get
were probably
called
like, what?
either, obviously.
Oh, really?
No, no, it was literally just like
What?
they had decided that like yeah, my parents didn't get called. We just found out through the grapevine that no one's allowed to ride with us anymore.
Weird. I wonder
Yeah.
if they just assumed that because you and I were closest,
Yeah.
like you were my closest friend in there. I wonder if they just assumed like they're not going to call either of our parents. I don't.
Yeah.
They didn't want to
Because
tell
our
them.
parents are the
They
bad
iced us
parents.
out
I
in that
don't
way.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think we turned out to
Yeah.
be the way that we are?
I know. Well, and then after that, it was like she was like looking for things to be upset about. Like I remember one time,
Yeah.
because again, I had a phone because I was like, I was the oldest daughter, and I was like essentially I was like assigned a lot of
Right. We're
parenting
the moms of the,
responsibility.
yep, 100%.
And I had a phone, and I don't remember again specifics. I know it had something to do with groceries and something to do with my grandmother. And I had the phone out because I was waiting for the call. It was like something specific, and it was like something I was supposed to be doing via my parents. And before the game had started, like nothing was going on. I like went outside the building to take the call, like had the phone call, went to the bathroom, came back. Mrs. Farr was like, "Where were you?" I was like, "I went to the bathroom." And she was like, "You're a liar. I saw you on the phone outside, blah, blah, blah. How dare you? You're taking phone calls. You're like, who are you even talking to, et cetera, and so forth." And then she wouldn't let me play that game. And we were losing really badly. And I remember one of the other girls who didn't even like me, usually, it was the girl who told on me to her mom, was upset because we were getting, she was like, "Why don't you just let Jessalyn in?" And Mrs. Farr was like, "Well, when you're a liar, this is what happens, blah, blah, blah." Like literally she told the whole team that I was a liar and that like I was on the phone and whatever. Anyway.
That's some of the that's like the shittiest one of the shittiest type of adults to me is the type
Yeah.
that pick on little kids or are petty
Yeah.
or like just bully them. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Just like bullying kids. Like you're the coach. Set a fucking example. That's
Yeah.
embarrassing for you. No, not
Yeah.
for you, but for her.
Yeah, I know. And I'm like, well, I mean, there's no way to win here
Like
because
what?
I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And
Right.
like, this is all it takes to be like, well, okay.
Right.
So,
That's crazy. Like what point are you trying to prove as an adult?
yeah.
It's just like dominance, some false sense of dominance.
That
You're
was
in a
kind of the
position of
theme.
power.
Yeah, that was kind of the theme. Like, I didn't ask her permission to go outside. I didn't ask her permission to talk on the phone. I didn't give her every detail of information of everything I had done. I didn't like, it was very like this micromanagey kind of odd power trip
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
You know what I notice is that how we were raised, like very patriarchal, the man is the head of the
Hmm.
household and like the woman reports to the man and then the children
Yeah.
report to the mom type of like hierarchy. It's a lot of the women, my mom included,
Hmm.
and our coach included, it's like they would take out so much of that on kids because
Yeah.
that's like their sense of like
Hmm.
ownership and power and
Yeah.
control because they're supposed to have that towards the man, and then when they get a sense of that themselves, and it's usually almost exclusively over children, then it
Yeah.
comes out in the nastiest ways.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's literally, yeah, it is passing that down, passing the like aggression down.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
yeah, the bottom of the totem pole is us. There we
Yeah.
were. What's lower than women? Minor girls.
Yes.
Not, I don't even want to just say children, because
Yeah.
even the older teenage boys already
Yeah.
were shifting into that like the
They
powered like man role.
You weren't, yeah, exactly. And they would not be treated that way. At my church, it was once women were allowed to teach children until they are became saved. Our version was get baptized until the boy children got baptized, and then the boy children were considered above the women. So literally, like if your son got baptized at 12, he is now above you in the ranking. Like
Yeah,
you're
we didn't do the
yeah,
baptized thing, but that's how it is.
yeah.
It's like suddenly then you're elevated. They're closer to God than you are.
Exactly.
Oh my
Yeah. So you
gosh.
weren't allowed to teach
Yeah.
them anymore. That's another reason
Because
why it
they
was
basically
like,
know more.
yeah, like I had this thought too, like some of these, and I want to be clear because I also know some very wonderful guys who've left who've like really like deconstructed this for themselves. But like some of them that are just like, oh my God, they're still so obnoxious. It occurs to me that it's like literally since they were like 12, 13 years old, they were told that their voice is important and that they were a teacher over women,
Yeah.
and they were being like allowed to preach in the pulpit and being patted on the back like, wow, amazing job, well done. Like you're such a, you know, servant for the Lord, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
Meanwhile, we can't win.
I know. I'm like, oh my God, we should talk about that too. Like, this is another thing we have in common. So it was like I left at 18, and I was the first kid that I knew of to have like left that church and stopped going to church. And for some reason, like I guess that label got stuck on me after I left, and I didn't speak to anybody. Like I wasn't allowed to speak to my siblings after I left. When my
Same.
sister grew up, and she's 10 years younger than me, she told me like everything everybody would say. And it was like anytime any of the other kids would leave that church or like stop going or whatever, I would get blamed. Be like, oh, Jessalyn's influence, this and that and whatever. Like she must have been talking to them. She must have been doing this. I hadn't
Right.
spoken to anybody. I was like, these people think I'm some powerful witch who's like voodoo mind
You are
controlling all the
everywhere. Yeah.
kids at the church and being like, come with me to my world of sin.
Right.
Like, and I got
I mean, I love it.
disfellowshipped. I got officially like announced from the church like disfellowshipped like a few years after I had left too. And I had no idea that they did this. And a girl who I knew who's since left, who still went, like messaged me to be like, just FYI, this happened today at church. Did you know about this? I'm like, no, I have no idea. But ooh, my feelings are hurt.
Like years after?
Yeah, it really was. It was like 3 or 4 years after. Yeah.
Have they nothing better to do? No, actually. Let me just answer my No.
I guess maybe they thought I'd
Yeah,
come
so
back at some point and then they realized I wouldn't. I don't know. I have no idea.
yeah. At some point you become too far gone. And I guess
Right.
you had reached that point.
Right.
But the
Yeah.
same thing, yeah, the same fucking thing happened here. I have a sibling who's 11 years younger, and they're
Mm-hmm.
the only ones besides me who got out as well. And they've told me after the fact, like, oh yeah, they said like the church said this, this, and this, or you were labeled as this and this, or mom said this, and it
Mm.
was always like everything was blamed on me, everything. Which looking back now, I'm like, whatever. It's kind of funny in hindsight, not
Yeah.
haha funny, but like okay,
Mm-hmm.
y'all are pretty disconnected from reality if you are able to like justify it in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was they sent people to come after me to mail me letters like
Yeah.
telling me I'm going to hell, call me, leave me voicemails telling me I'm going to hell. I mean,
Yeah.
and then so 6 months after I ran away, I got pregnant. So I ran
Mm.
away. 2 weeks later, I married my son's dad. 2 weeks later, we hadn't dated. Like
Yeah.
he had been gone. He was older, a lot older than me too. And then 6 months after getting married, I got pregnant. So my son had a stomach condition. So on my first ultrasound, they found like all his stomach hadn't closed up, so all of his intestines were on the outside of his body.
Mm.
But I was told that that happened because of my sin. My sin
Wow.
caused this, yes, caused his stomach condition. And if I wanted to right that and for him to be healed, then I needed to come back to God.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
So, yeah, so I had hands laid on me down in, where were we? Louisiana. My son was born in Louisiana, so I think we were down there at the time. It was when I was still pregnant. So like my son's dad and myself were down there at a church. This pastor laid hands on me and said, if you feel the need to cough or, anything like that, just let it out. Those are the demons coming. And I guess that was going to right my sins. And I was like, I remember thinking, I wasn't even entirely deconstructed at this point, but I remember thinking, I will choke on my spit before I cough in front of this man and give him the satisfaction of thinking
Yeah.
what he's doing is working.
Yeah.
And so I didn't, but it was the weirdest fucking experience. And my son was not healed. So I guess he's doomed with my sin.
Yeah.
So
Well, that makes sense.
yeah, it's
Oh,
loosely science based.
yeah. Were you guys allowed to go to doctors when you were growing up? No,
No.
me neither. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
No.
Mm-mm.
Strictly not.
I didn't, yeah. No doctors, no dentist. I didn't even see a dentist until I was an adult. I'd moved out.
Oh. We were allowed to go to the
Yeah, it's pretty
dentist.
bad.
That's interesting. To get teeth cleaned. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And get like cavities filled, but
Interesting.
not doctors because medicine's bad.
Yeah. Everything should be holistic.
Yeah. I remember I was a teenager and I caught meningitis and I was really, really bad.
What?
Like it was so painful, like your whole body hurts. And I
Oh
remember
my
one of my
God.
friends from church, this girl who's my age was like, that's enough, and came and got me and like took me to a doctor. And the doctor was like, thank God you came, or it'd be like, you probably wouldn't have made it.
Holy sh-
Yeah.
Holy shit. That's, yeah, you don't want to mess around with meningitis. What the
Yeah.
hell?
I don't even know where I got that from. But anyway.
I don't know.
Because I didn't go anywhere or do anything. You know what I mean? Where do you get that?
Were your parents mad that you went to the doctor? Like your friend
I
took you
didn't
to the
I didn't
doctor?
tell them. I didn't tell them. And this girl, this
Oh.
this friend of mine, so she was like a loophole because she went to our church, and so she was approved of like a good kid I was allowed to go places with by
Mm,
myself.
okay.
But she had moved there from Arizona, and her dad was not a Christian. Her parents were like divorced. And so she had like exposure to the outside world and was not a fan of the church at all. And so she was like, we were always sneaking around and doing things. This was like later on. I was like 16, 17, 18, whatever. And so we would always just make up stories of whatever we were doing and then go do whatever. But yeah. So no, we didn't. Yeah, she just took me and I didn't tell them.
I love that one of the sneaking around things was
Is
just
going to the
healthcare.
doctor. Yeah,
You are so rebellious.
I know. I talked to my grandma on the phone about groceries and I go to the doctor. So that's why I was a bad kid.
Wow. That- That's so funny. I know I still have a hard time wrapping. I feel like I've gaslit myself over the years sometimes, especially early on, because I would think I'm like, why am I? Because my family didn't talk to me when I left. They don't want anything to do with me. No one like after like kind of it registered I wasn't coming back, and nothing that they were doing was bring me back. Then I was cut off, like not allowed to talk to anybody. My siblings, I didn't speak to my
Hmm.
siblings. In fact, none of them, only one of them talks to me now, and that's the
Yeah.
one who got out, who I helped run away when they were a senior
Yeah.
in high school.
Yeah.
But other than that, they wouldn't have anything to do with me. And I think back on my childhood a lot, and I'm like, what did I do that was so bad to have me labeled as
Yeah.
being so rebellious and so heathen and a Jezebel? Like I didn't do anything. I really genuinely was not
No.
even allowed to have hobbies or outside friends. Like there was nothing that actually constituted me
Hmm.
being labeled that way or you being labeled that way. It
No.
was just, I mean, every now and then I would voice an independent thought or opinion.
Yeah.
Um, and I was always in trouble for a bad attitude.
Yeah.
It turns out I was undiagnosed ADHD and autism. And so, there's so many signs of neurodivergence growing
Yep.
up, but my parents
Same.
just slapped a label on it as being rebellious and
Exactly.
defiant.
Yeah. Same. Same. And my mom even knew. The thing is, my mom even knew that. She knew I had ADHD, and she told me that one of the good reasons why it was great that we were homeschooling is because if I went to school, they'd force me to be on Ritalin. Um, and she, even when I was older, she was like, I think you need to go get evaluated for autism. Like she told me that. She
Bitch,
was
why
like, you
didn't
should.
you? You're the parent.
I'm like, so she know, like she's been knowing that something was going on the whole time.
She been
Like,
new. Yeah.
yeah,
That's like willful neglect.
I was, I read the dictionary when I was 14 years old. I read the dictionary. That's not
Listen,
normal.
when you mentioned that earlier, I wanted to be like, I didn't because I was like, I'm not gonna assume, but like because I also read the dictionary. I don't think I like wrote down all the words I didn't know,
Yeah.
but I read the dictionary and the thesaurus and the encyclopedias. Like we had all the encyclopedias, but you know
Yeah.
what? A couple of the encyclopedias were taken off the shelves and we weren't allowed to read them. The ones
Oh.
that talked about reproductive or like body parts and
Hmm.
stuff like that.
Yeah. Yep. 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 That makes sense. We got like some books from like kids books at one point. I forget from who. Like somebody gave us a box And there was one about that as like a kid's book on where babies come from. And my parents didn't catch it before I did. And so I like flipped through a little and brought it to them and like was like, "Hey guys, what's this?" And I remember my mom like she turned like white. She was like, "Give me that."
She's just horrified.
Yeah.
How dare you know how bodies work?
I remember even one time at a church we were going to, they were doing a sermon on Song of Solomon, and we stayed home. We never stayed home from church. We stayed home from church that day because my parents didn't think it would be appropriate.
Is that like the Bathsheba?
No, the
Like,
Song of Solomon is like the book about like enjoying sex.
we must have just glazed right over that one too. I don't remember ever hearing any sermons or teachings or classes or references
Yeah.
to that.
I'm gonna like just pull up. I love this verse actually. It's one of my favorite verse. Song of Solomon. Hold on.
The OG smut.
Yeah. Uh, Song of Solomon, chapter 4. Your teeth are like a flock of sheep, just shorn, come up from the washing. Each has his twin, not one of them is alone. It's a nice way of saying you've got a full set of teeth there. Oh my gosh.
Sir Mix-a-Lot could never.
Yeah. But anyway.
Like imagine a man telling you that your teeth are like freshly shorn sheep.
Each has a twin, not one of them is alone. You don't have a single snaggletooth, girl.
No gaps detected.
And this is why it took me so long to figure out that I was gay.
It makes sense now, you know? Oh my god. Wait, is there any more good are there any more good verses right there?
Yeah, okay, hold on.
Woo
There's
me.
another one. Oh my god. Oh, here's my favorite one. Oh, okay.
See, I wasn't allowed, I guess not. We didn't go over Song of Solomon, but I did have to memorize the entire book of Proverbs. Every chapter. Well, you know, especially extra emphasis on Proverbs 31, you know, on being a good wife.
Chapter 7. Okay. All right, are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Your stature is like that of the palm, and your breasts like clusters of fruit. I said, I will climb the palm tree, and I will take hold of its fruit.
Sir! I probably would have read the Bible a lot more if I had heard that.
That was actually not a bad line.
Tree. Yeah. It's actually not bad.
Yeah.
Like a palm tree. Because, girl, you be swaying those hips.
I know. I mean, if I'm not allowed to go to church because they're talking about a book, like, what's the next book on the Bible I'm going to read? I mean, come on.
Immediately. Straight to Song of Solomon I go.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if the Bible is infallible and it's like you need to know everything about the Bible, come on, the cherry picking here. Not to be confused with the clusters of grapes.
Right.
This is a separate fruit. These are the cherries.
Yes, exactly. But here's another one. Actually, the next verse. May your breasts be like clusters of the vine, the fragrance of your breath like apples, and your mouth like the best wine. May the wine go straight to my lover, flowing gently over teeth and lips.
Oh my God. It's getting a little warm in here.
So there were some things happening in the Bible.
Oh my God. This is why all those Christian families had a dozen children.
Yeah.
That was their pillow talk and their foreplay right there.
I actually heard some people say that in like these ladies' Bible classes that like you shouldn't read the Song of Solomon until you're married. And then that could be like something for you to do with your husband.
Ooh, spicy.
Yeah.
So spicy.
Mhm.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm still wrapping my brain around it. That's so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so slutty. I love it.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you had to go to those like ladies' Bible classes where they like talked about marriage and they all complained about their own marriages
Yes.
and having to have sex with their
Yes.
husbands and such. Yeah.
Yeah, unconsensual sex because
Yeah.
essentially because they didn't want to, but
Yeah.
when the husband wants it, you have to concede.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually have I made a short video about something else, but I think I'm going to post it later today actually, but
Yeah.
it talks about that too of like there's no marital rape essentially because
No,
you can't unlawfully take what is yours
exactly.
essentially. So yeah, so if the husband wants it, the husband gets it, and it's fine whether or not you want it. You just need to put your own desires to the side. Like put your desires to the side
Yeah.
because his wants come first, and you want to keep him happy. So
Yeah. And there's that verse that it's like says something about how it's like a sin to forego the marital bed for certain periods of time or whatever. I forget. Yeah. I remember we were like very, very young, and some guy was teaching our Bible class and we were like going over those verses, and he was telling us that it was a sin to tell your husband no, um, if he wanted to have sex with you. We were like literally like 12 or 13 at the time. And I remember one of the girls in my class was like, well, what if he like, comes home drunk and like hits you? Can you say no then? And he was like, well, he would be sinning by doing that, but then you would be sinning also if you told him no. So why are you both gonna sin, basically?
yeah, two wrongs don't make a right. So
Yeah, right.
God, that's so gross.
Yeah,
But I mean, yeah, we were taught the same freaking thing, and I
yeah,
did go to those all women's classes. I think probably
yeah.
when I was probably like starting maybe age like 14, 15 is when I first started going to those. I know there was some called like there's one like the rubies
Oh,
because
the
there's that
Ruby.
verse about
Yeah,
like being far above
yeah,
rubies, what the fuck ever.
yeah,
And then there's like the Proverbs 31 wife, and they were always taught by women. I would never want to
mm,
model my relationship after.
yeah. Well, exactly. I
Oh,
mean, seriously though, like I I had absolutely no idea that I was queer at all until I was like much later in life. And like I was literally married to a man, considered myself straight. But like if you think about growing up that way, with the way that like sexuality is framed as something that men have and women don't, and how normal it is to not want to have sex with your husband and to how
right.
like putting up with him is a burden and blah 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 and that's how it should be and so forth. Like you're not going to question that and be like, oh, this is abnormal that I don't like have these certain feelings about
Right.
my husband. You know what I mean? Like, or guys in
Right.
general. You're just like, okay, you find like one you can tolerate and go from there.
That's exactly what it is. No, that's
Yeah.
literally what it is.
Yeah.
Like it's like the men are the ones with any desire and any
Yes.
sex drive, and women just simply we don't have it. We're just emotional. That's what we are.
Exactly.
We're emotional, but they're the sexual,
Right.
driven
Right.
part of that relationship. So,
Yeah.
yeah, if you don't have those feelings, then okay, that doesn't mean anything. That just means that's normal.
Yeah, and men are visually stimulated and women aren't. So you got to like dress modestly and cover
Right.
your body, but men don't
Right.
have to because women don't look at them and think
Mm-mm.
those thoughts.
We don't. We
Yeah.
don't, especially when we're queer.
Yeah, no, I mean, I did not. So there's that. And I'm like, well, that sounds right. And then if you like
Yeah,
see, yeah,
personally.
but it's and anything like with women is not sexual at all. So it was like, I remember, girl, I had like a friend who we would have sleepovers and whatever, and we would make out, and we would call it like practicing for when we got married,
Right.
and
Right.
like be fully like hooking up. And I am serious when I tell you, I did not understand that that was sexual until I was in like my late 20s. And when I figured it out, I
Yeah.
was mind blown. I was like, holy heck, I was hooking up with my friend.
Like, no, that was simply heterosexual
Yes,
practicing.
that was simply two straight girls doing our best to become
That's
good
it.
wives one day.
That's it. You
It's the
But
straightest
how
thing
many of
that I've
us
ever done.
thought that? All of us, I
Yeah.
think. That's what one of my siblings, my brother tells me too, is like he had all of his queer experiences
Yeah.
with other church kids at church,
Yeah.
church camp, whatever. And so we, all of our parents thought like
Hmm.
keeping us so closed off from the world and
Yeah.
so in this super controlled bubble would
Hmm.
prevent any of that from ever happening because also, I don't know if you know, being gay is a choice.
Right. And
So,
it's actually not really
by
real. It's actually fake.
right,
So,
it is.
yeah. So there's that
So,
too.
by isolating, they can't
Yeah.
possibly turn out to be gay
Right.
because
Exactly.
they don't have access to that. Please, those
Propaganda. Yeah.
those church camp cabins, a lot of people found their
Girl,
true
all of the
sexuality.
girls were like in bed with each other in their underwear all the time,
Yes.
like all over each other constantly. Like,
I have to believe it was very similar in the boys' cabin. I don't know, wasn't there, but I've
yeah.
heard plenty of stories.
Yeah. No, like seriously though, a bunch of the boys that I knew actually got in trouble because they were like sitting around like masturbating like with each other in the room, like in a very straight
Like,
manner, I'm sure. But
right. Yeah.
um and I guess that was
Thinking about girls.
a
Yeah.
little too far, and then they got in trouble.
Oh, rubbing one out for the Lord.
Yeah. So,
Jeez. Oh, it's
oh
so
my God.
messed up. Like, just, I mean, I would like to see some statistics on the number of people who leave the church and end
Mm.
up coming out in
Yeah.
some way
Yeah.
afterwards. Because in my circle, personally,
Yeah.
it's it's probably
It's a lot.
75% or higher.
Yeah. I think, yeah. I'm involved with like an online support group, and I'll say that that's one thing we've noticed too, is that there's a lot of
Oh,
people
really?
who are a much higher percentage than ever. And I think it's like it being queer makes it so much harder to stay in that environment. It makes it so much less tolerable, I think. So,
Hmm.
you know, especially depending on how aware of it you are. So it makes sense to me that more queer
Yeah.
people would leave. But I mean, there's also a lot of straight people. There's even like straight couples who like leave together because they just think it doesn't make
I love
sense to
that.
them anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I don't That's what I was always afraid of though. Like you said, you looked around and you saw the options and you were like, this is not what I want.
yeah.
I I had similar thoughts where it's like I feel like if I stay here, I'm going to get, roped into something I don't even want to be a part of. And then
Yeah.
just looking at the pattern, I'm like, okay, you get married and you immediately start having babies, and then you're essentially effed. Like you're in it
Yeah.
now
Right.
with
What are you
this
supposed to do
person.
now?
And so I was like, I have to get out before that happens.
Hmm.
But my parents, they said the boys in my family were allowed to either join the military or go to college. But being the only girl, I was only allowed to go to college if it was the medical field. But get this, my mom I went to community college when I was still a senior in high school, and my mom enrolled in every class with me.
Wow.
I wasn't even allowed to take classes by myself. So I had to take,
Wow.
obviously I wasn't homeschooled like at all, really.
Yeah.
So I had to take like remedial math and all of that.
Yeah.
She did not take the remedial class with me because I think that would have been too embarrassing for her as someone with a high school degree or a high school diploma already.
Mm-hmm.
But like anatomy and physiology, I took
Yeah.
that. And that was the first time outside of the encyclopedia that I read any
Yeah.
reproductive terms. And that was
Wow.
traumatizing with my mom sitting right here.
Yeah.
Like, so this is the vulva. I'm like,
Yeah.
good times, good times. Like, why couldn't my memory have blocked out things like that?
Yeah. Well, you could have just been reading Song of Solomon. You would have known all about it this whole time.
Honestly, I
Yeah.
feel like I missed out, but not.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I'm surprised that, like, yeah, my parents would have thought that that was like spending too much money. Like to like pay for like to pay for my mom to go to the same class. It would be like too
We had Pell
expensive.
Grants though, because we were poverty poor.
Oh.
Yeah, we were poverty poor. And then, there was 7 kids. So we qualified.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing about the healthcare aspect, real quick. We were so poverty poor. My dad was the only one who worked, and my dad
Yeah.
just didn't hold down a job, like would change jobs. We moved
Yeah.
every 2 years because my dad just like couldn't keep a job or whatever. I don't
Yeah.
know all of the details. But it was always like self-employed or starting a business and then working for someone else and then getting bored
Yeah.
with it. So it was just like no consistency. And the income was just so sporadic and so
Yeah.
little. And so we qualified for everything. We would have qualified for our kids, like anything government would have
Yeah.
like paid for our healthcare and dental,
Yeah.
anything like that. But they didn't want the government, they didn't want any handouts, any help at all, any charity,
Yeah.
any way for the government to have insight into our home, because ultimately, they were
Yeah.
inflicting corporal punishment on their children and didn't want the
Yeah.
state to see that. So that's ultimately
Yeah.
what it came down to. But
Yeah.
the Pell Grants, we were so poor that it covered all of, like any of us
Well,
could have
that's
gone. So
good.
that's the only way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Yeah. You guys like had the fear mongering about CPS? People were like
God,
always going on
yes.
and on about the devil, aka CPS,
Yeah.
and how terrifying
Just
they
wanting
were.
to rip your families apart. Yep. Just wanting to rip you apart and put
I'm
you in
gonna
different families. And
take you and
they're
put you
always
in
coming for the
abusive foster
Christians.
homes and
Yep. You'll never see your siblings again or your
mm-hmm.
parents. You'll be abused.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because we weren't already.
Yeah, ultimately that's what I thought too when I was a kid. I started like planning my escape when I was probably, I don't know, probably like I started having thoughts about running away from home when I was probably 8 is the earliest I remember, because I tried to unalive myself. My mom told me I
Yeah.
should unalive myself, so I tried to when I was
Yeah.
8.
Yeah.
And that's about the time I started thinking, no matter what they're telling me is going on out in the world and how bad it is, I feel like I feel like I can survive it. That's what
Yeah.
what my thought was. So I started planning like getting
Yeah.
out pretty young.
Yeah.
So those thoughts have been there a long
Yeah.
time. It wasn't a spur of
How
the moment thing.
how were you like, did you have trouble like making friends and like talking to people and like trusting people when you left?
I still do
Yeah.
sometimes. I do like okay. I have trouble separating it because part of it I do think is how I was raised.
Mm.
Like it's so deeply embedded still, even no, I've been in
Yeah.
therapy for a decade, but there's still that, I don't know, there's still something there with that's
Yeah.
pretty deep seated. And I also constantly feel like I'm bad at it still. Like I feel like I'm
Mm.
bad at friendships. I feel like I'm not a great friend and
Mm-hmm.
that I can't nurture my friendships the way that are required. So it's almost
Mm-hmm.
easier to keep people at a distance than to allow a lot of close friends. I have
Mm-hmm.
a couple of really close friends from childhood or for like
Yeah.
probably like 15, 20 years, but they all live out of state. No, I have no like no friends here, like
Yeah.
no close friends in the state at all.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad. So yeah, it was rough. It's gotten better over time, but
Yeah.
what about you? Was that a struggle?
Yeah, well, when I got to Kentucky, it was like, to your point, we were told how awful and terrible all of these worldly people were. So I was like afraid of people, but also I had like we didn't watch TV or, like I had like a
Right.
couple CDs I managed to get. But I had no concept of pop culture or like any of the things that people were talking about. And so I remember I would get invited to parties. I was a music major and a chemistry major in the music department. They were like really friendly. So they'd always invite me to their parties. And I would literally kind of like, at first, just sort of sit back and like observe and listen to people, what they're talking about. Like I would literally make like mental notes of like TV shows I should go watch or like what music I should go listen to so I know what people are talking about.
Right.
And then at a certain point, it was like, okay, I felt like, all right, I'm going to dive in and like,
Yeah. You got this.
uh, and I feel like I went like a little too hard and I was a little like loud and, you know, like too much, trying too hard, if that makes any sense. Like trying too hard to
Yeah.
be like,
Yeah.
here's how
Like, look,
normal
I
people
fit in.
act
Look
with
how
each
well
other.
I fit
Yeah,
in.
guys, I know,
I'm just like you.
I know what people do.
Look at all this eye contact.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like it took a long time to figure out how to like interact with people normally or even
Yeah.
just like natural, like as myself, like naturally, like,
Yep.
yeah.
I have said that too. It took me a long time to even figure out what my real personality was.
Yeah,
It was
that too.
so
Yeah.
subdued. I had no idea what I liked because,
Yeah.
like, to your point, I didn't know anything about. Still, I'm so massively behind pop culture references, but
Yeah.
especially back then, could not find a way to connect with people in that way or little nuances about high school experience, anything like that. I had no,
Mm,
like, connection with people my age about anything like that.
yeah.
I think I really learned to adapt more and communicate and build relationships more actually when I got into the corporate world
Yeah.
because then I was interacting with people more consistently and it's easier to mirror and to see like what's acceptable and like basically just regurgitate a lot of the terms used in corporate
Yeah.
America. And so
Yeah.
that helped me like kind of get my balance a little bit, I think, and learn how to interact with people in a way that made me look more normal, or at least I thought.
Yeah.
But especially early on, I remember people, like you said, you would always sit back and kind of like observe, and people would always say I was stuck up. And that I was
Me
like,
too.
what? What do you
Me
mean?
too.
What do you mean I'm
Yeah.
stuck up? I literally don't know what I'm doing.
I know. I'm terrified of you. I'm not stuck up. I like, if anything, it's the reverse. I think you're better than me. I don't know how to interact
Exactly.
with you.
Yes. Like everyone is up
Yeah,
here and I'm down here like wide-eyed
exactly.
like a freaking baby deer. Have
And
no idea what's
nervous.
going on.
Like, so
Yes.
I would, yeah, so I would make a lot of nervous faux pas and the people thought I was just being like a dick, like make like a nervous joke or
Yeah.
something, and people would just think I was being a dick, and I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Same. Actually, that still happens, I'm gonna be honest. Like a couple corporate jobs ago, my boss used to like jokingly introduce me to clients and stuff. He'd be like, "Yeah, so this is Kendra, she's the bitch." I'd be like, "Thanks." And then I
oh my
also had a
God.
boss who told me I eat like I'm in prison, and that I think goes back to being really poor, not having access to a
Yeah,
lot of food, and being in a big
yeah,
family where when we sat down to eat, it was like you better eat first of all, you were forced to eat everything on your plate, whether you liked it or
Yeah.
not. There were times, especially now knowing like the autism factor, I have one of my major things is textures,
Yeah.
like peas, bananas, things like that. I cannot fucking do at all.
Yeah.
And my parents would force me to eat those things. I would like throw up at the table
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
get in trouble for doing that. So, but my ex boss would be like, he would do this. He'd be like, "This is Kendra." He'd do his play right here.
Yeah.
It's like that's how Kendra eats. I was like, I really thought I was blending in this corporate world, but I guess not.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah. I mean, the food thing too, like it's taken me a long time to figure out how to feed myself because we weren't poor, but we were so like one of the things that was said in my family a lot was like, don't do that or boys won't like you. Don't do that or boys won't like you. And it was always
Mm,
like every time you ate, it was like that's gonna catch up to you. That's gonna catch up to you.
mm-hmm.
Like, so I really just didn't eat. And when I left,
Yeah.
I didn't really eat. Like I look back on that time and it was like a few things here or there. Like I wouldn't eat for like days and then I would have like like eat an entire pizza or something. You know what I mean? Um,
Same.
and so I had no idea how to feed myself, what food. Like I started like powerlifting recently and like figuring out like how food works with your body and lifting and that kind of
Right.
stuff and like what you need and like how much protein and how many carbs and all of this and how it works together. I literally I feel like in the past year I've finally figured out like what food is for, if that makes any
No,
sense.
that's great. It
Yeah.
makes a ton of sense because same, and it was
Yeah.
like like food is your enemy is how food was
Yeah.
always presented.
Right. You have
Like
to be
my mom
tiny as
put
possible.
me on a diet. Yes, my mom put me on a diet when I was like 8 or 10 years old
Hmm.
because all the women on my maternal side are like overweight, have had like all the gastric bypass. Like
Yeah.
but I've even as a little kid, I was never chunky or anything, but my mom just like just was convinced I was going to
Yeah.
be overweight. And so she would put me on diets and it was always that way. Like, oh, your metabolism is not going to be like this forever. It's going to catch up
Yeah.
to you. You're going to put on weight. You're going to turn around one day and you're going to blow up. And,
Yeah.
you want to make sure like you get a good husband. What?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Oh, and then you have to stay
But
attractive for your husband. That's part of the,
yes, right. Because if he cheats on you, that's your
it's your
fault
fault. Yeah.
because you weren't meeting his needs. But I would do the same thing where it was like, I would sometimes, this is really sad, trigger warning.
Yeah.
But it was almost like a competition in my brain to see how many days I could go
Mm.
without eating.
It was a
It was
source of
like,
pride.
oh,
Yeah.
well, yes. I feel like there's probably a diagnosis there. I don't
Yeah.
know. But
No,
so
I
I
know
would go
exactly what you
like,
mean.
I would go several days and I'd be like, oh, I've already gone this long. At some point, you just like shut off the
Yeah.
feeling of hunger. And
Yeah.
then
Yes.
it's binge. Then it's, yeah, at
Hmm.
some point you just binge.
Yeah. I only recently got back the like feeling hungry when I'm hungry, when I need food. Like
Mm,
I literally just never that I didn't have that for years, a sense of hunger at all,
that's
which is crazy.
crazy. Yeah, that's not
Yeah.
normal, actually.
No, I know.
Oops.
Yeah. This is actually funny. Let's go back to the whole getting divorced thing. One of the there's a few things that happened that were like final straws. One of the things that happened in the last days was like I had started eating toward the last like year or two of the marriage, and I had gained weight, of course, because when you eat, like, but I was just like
Yeah,
a normal size, honestly, like a
a
normal
normal, yeah.
size. Okay. And anyway, I had said something to um, a friend of mine about how I used to have an eating disorder and I wouldn't eat and blah, blah, blah. And like how I was like, giving myself permission to eat and how I was like feeling better. And like I used to have all these headaches. I didn't anymore, blah, blah, blah. And he overheard me. And like at a later time, he was like, hey, I heard you say to someone that you had an eating disorder. What are you talking about? You never had an eating disorder. And I was like, yeah, of course I did. Don't you remember you used to even say yourself, like, I don't eat. Like I'll just graze. I'll go get like a few almonds and then eat them and then like whatever. Like and I literally would even tell him, don't offer me food. Like if you're making dinner, don't offer me food. And I was like, you used to say that or whatever. And then I was like feeling vulnerable. I was like opening up, and I was like, yeah, and I've been
Yeah.
doing this and like eating more and blah blah blah. And he was like, yeah, actually, I have been concerned about how much you've been eating lately. I've been meaning to bring that up to you. And I was like, and then I just said nothing else. I was like, well, okay, never gonna speak on that again.
Oh, that makes me mad.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That fucking
Yeah.
sucks. What a piece of
Yeah.
shit. I would like to, I've been meaning to have a conversation with him about what a fucking dick he is. I don't even know this man. Never met this man in my life. But like,
Yeah.
I've really been meaning to have this
Yeah.
conversation
Yeah.
with him
Oh my
specifically.
God. Oh.
So similarly, when I was pregnant with my son, married to his dad, I was like very conscious about pregnancy cravings for the same
Yeah.
reasons, because it was
Hmm.
like, I don't want to gain weight. I was like, okay, the sense of pride of like, okay, let's see how much weight I can not gain
Yeah.
in my pregnancy. But then I was a high risk pregnancy. I was on bed rest for a lot of it. So
Yeah.
I gained a shit ton of weight. So then I was extra self-conscious. So I really didn't have a lot of crazy cravings, but there was one time very close to the end, like towards giving birth, I was craving a piece of chocolate cheesecake. And so I
Yeah.
asked him, I was like, hey, like, I can't, like, this feels like I'm going insane if I don't get this type of thing.
Yeah.
And he told me I was already the size of a cow and that I didn't need it. And he didn't go, like, he was like, absolutely not. So, cut from
Well,
the
I've
same
been
cloth.
meaning to have a conversation with him too.
Let's get these motherfuckers
Let's
on
get
the
them
phone.
on the line. Oh my
What
God.
gives you the right?
I
But you
know.
know what? What does bring me joy is that, not to pat myself on the back, I've aged quite well. I feel like I've gotten better with age, and
Me
he
too, yeah.
has gotten so bad. It's bad. It's
Well, that's
bad.
good. I don't
So,
even know. I I have no idea what this man is doing anymore. Thank God. I tried to.
well, yeah, thank God. I only because we have a child, but
Yeah. Ah, yes, that does make sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 But
No,
I
but
always
you
say,
got,
like,
yeah.
jokingly, like, I'm like, God does not like ugly, meaning like if you're
Hmm.
ugly on the inside, it's gonna
Exactly. It's
eventually
gonna come
like
out
show on the
as you
outside. I
age.
truly, yeah,
Yeah.
I think that.
Yeah. No, but I agree. You
And
just keep
yeah.
getting hotter all the time, so keep going.
I really don't care if men compliment me, but when women, it's such
No,
a top tier compliment. Thank you so much. You are
you're
the
welcome.
same,
Oh,
obviously.
thank you.
Like,
Yeah.
because we're not trash human beings.
I know.
So
Uh,
go us.
girl. Oh my
Oh
God. Okay.
man.
This is the last story I'm going to tell just because it's such a good one. But what you were saying before about like if they cheat, it's our fault or whatever. So mine
Yeah.
did. And in fact wrote me a list of all the ladies that he had, done something scandalous with.
What?
Uh-huh. I have a list. I have a list on a piece of paper along with the reasons why. Uh, so that's nice. Anyway, he really, really thought that I was not going to leave him. And then when he moved out, he thought I was going to take him back and all this. When he finally figured out that wasn't going to happen, I got a long letter about everything that was wrong with me and all of the reasons why this was really my fault, um, as you can imagine. And my favorite line, it's so good. He said,
Oh
I am
God.
not a compulsive philanderer, and you are not the ideal spouse. So just so you know, I'm not the ideal spouse, but I was like, that is brilliant. And so when the divorce was finalized, I threw a divorce party and I like got myself a pageant sash made that said not the ideal
Yes.
spouse. Like wore it with like a
Yes.
crown.
God, that's iconic. Oh my God, I love it. That's
I was like,
amazing.
everybody should know I am not the ideal spouse, just so you know.
So let's just put that out there
Let's
right
just put
now.
that out there.
Um, I'm gonna go make you a T-shirt right now that says "Not the ideal spouse."
Not the
Actually, it's
ideal
gonna
spouse.
have to be like a workout tank because now you're
Yeah,
powerlifting. Oh, I
yeah.
was gonna say that real quick. I fucking love that you're doing that now. When I first divorced my son's dad,
Yeah.
it never worked out a day in my life.
Yeah.
And that's how I first started at a powerlifting gym, like an old school,
Nice.
rough, like dark, dingy,
Oh,
dirty
I
powerlifting
love it.
gym. Like I hired a trainer who was like this big, burly powerlifter. Um,
Nice.
and he ended up herniating my back. So like not a great move in that sense. But it,
Mhm.
that launched me into like bodybuilding, and I competed like
Nice.
competitive bodybuilding for like 8 years, 8 or 9 years.
Yeah.
But that had a huge part of like my
Yeah.
own healing with,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, eating, like just
Yeah.
my approach and learning how to see food as an ally instead of an enemy.
Yeah.
The gym and lifting specifically, because
Yeah.
if you want to see changes, as you know, with like muscle and
You have
develop
to eat
mature
enough.
muscle over time, you have to eat. Like
Yeah.
you have to.
Yeah.
So now I make a joke about it, but sometimes girls will come up to me in the gym and be like, "Oh my God, like can you give me tips on like growing my butt or whatever?" And I always say, it's a lot of IHOP, like
Yeah.
booty by IHOP,
Yeah.
because I mean, it's not strictly IHOP, but you
Yeah.
have to eat a lot. And
Yeah.
that's really hard to do when you've been like conditioned to think of food as working
Yeah.
against you and,
Yeah.
yeah, making
Yeah.
you uglier and less desirable
Hmm.
for boys. But
Yeah.
now we don't give a shit.
I know. I'm like, I don't, the number of men in
I
my
only
life
care
now
if
is
I
so
like me.
small. I know. I know. But also
That's it.
like just in general, the people in my life are all people that are just like great people who I love and who like make
Oh,
me feel better about life and myself, right?
yeah.
Um, but it's mostly women, like 95% women or non-binary, queer people,
Mm-hmm.
trans people. Cishet men are like 5% of my circle. And the ones who are in are like, you know, uh,
Mm,
but I was like, my mental health just literally skyrocketed when I stopped being
yeah.
surrounded by these like groups of like fuck boys,
That's
basically.
not a
Like,
coincidence. You said it's like 5%. I just feel like it could probably be 4.
it
Or
could
maybe, no, I'm
be.
just
You're
kidding.
right. I should really
It
do
could
an
be
audit.
lower.
I could do an audit for sure. For
You
sure.
should. You should throw a
Yeah.
party and invite all of your friends over and be like,
I'd be
"So, I've
like,
called you all here today.
I'm actually doing interviews. One of you will be getting dismissed.
One of you is getting voted off the
Yeah.
queer island."
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? That'd be a good television show right there.
That
Somebody
would
needs to
be.
pitch that.
That would
Just
be. Yeah.
saying. That's
Oh
on
my
you.
gosh. Yeah.
Well, do you have any other memories or dark secrets to reveal?
Oh my word. Dark secrets.
Mm.
I don't think so.
By
You
dark
know what I
secrets,
mean?
it could be like everything the air that we breathe has a sense of darkness to it now.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what's so I was talking about my parents, and how they've really done a lot of growing and coming around. I mean, they're still religious, but they left the church that we were going to. They now go to I've never been, but supposedly a more, welcoming church.
All right.
And I'm currently engaged to a trans person, and
We
they
love it.
found out about that. It wasn't like a secret because like everybody in my family knows, like, but
Yeah.
we weren't really talking that much. So anyway, also I'm just not giving them like updates. So
Right.
they texted me
It's your
about it
business, not theirs.
and sort of started doing the old school like Christian confront thing of like that's not God's plan, blah blah blah, so forth. And I just said to them like, listen, we both know we have very different beliefs. Like, we both have to accept that about each other if we want to have any kind of relationship, and we have to respect each other's boundaries. And this is not something I'm going to debate with you or like hear opinions on. So I hope you can respect
Right.
that and whatever. And they didn't say anything for like a month. And so I was like, okay, well, All right,
That's
whatever. I may never hear from them
that's a
again, but
no.
that is what it is. And then like a month
Yeah.
later, they wrote back and they were like, "Hey, sorry it's been so long, but we just needed to process, blah blah blah. We appreciate you like, speaking your mind in such a kind way, and we can respect your boundaries and blah blah blah." And then they've just been pleasant ever since and haven't said anything about it. I was
What?
like that would be
It
so
does
unheard
have
of.
a therapy feel to it.
Yeah.
Although me being triggered by my own parents'
Yeah.
fakeness, my first thought is like, is it genuine or is it like, you know,
I mean, it seems
is it
to
a
have
facade?
been
But I
so
don't know your
far. Yeah.
parents. But yeah, that's amazing. That gives me hope,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
It gives me hope.
Ended on a little like
I don't
positivity.
think
Yeah.
yes. And just like we respect your boundaries and them also
Yeah.
recognizing the way that you could have handled that in
Yeah.
a much different way and
Yeah.
you approached it with kindness and
Yeah.
like in a respectful way that
Yeah.
they were almost forced to mirror. Otherwise, they're not being very good Christians either,
Yeah.
you know, doing
Yeah,
it
but
out
I
of
mean,
anger. So that's good.
we even for Christmas we did like a little Secret Santa Christmas Zoom with everybody, and like my fiance was on there, my parents
Wow.
were on there. I was
How'd
could
that go?
never have seen that happening even a year ago. I don't know. So,
Wow. That's progress. That's so awesome. I'm happy
yeah.
for you.
Thanks.
That's great. No, that's a
Yeah.
huge deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of us feel like, well, a lot of our parents are generation, like our parents' generations, they're
Yeah.
not really open to change. It's not that they
Yeah, I
can't
know.
change. It's like they're just really set in their ways and it's
Yeah.
very black and white.
Yeah.
So it is nice to know that there
Yeah.
can be some shift in
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I
Not
think,
for me,
yeah.
but for some, I'm just kidding.
For some people, yeah, I know. I mean, I honestly,
Yeah,
like, I never would have expected it, but I think if people
that's
they
so
want to
refreshing.
change and they decide on their own for some
Yeah.
reason, then
You know
and
what
who
I think
knows what that
also
may be.
changes? Yeah, I was talking to my partner about it too. It's like the older our parents get, the more it seems like certain times they're more open to being kind or like
Hmm.
not being so set in their ways about every single thing. And I think
Yeah.
it's because it's starting to set in like we're not going to be here forever.
Yeah.
It's very finite. And so
Yeah.
the older that they get, it's like I need to remedy this if I want any chance of a relationship with my kids
Right.
while I'm still here. I have to,
Hmm.
I have to change myself or I have to approach
Yeah.
this differently.
I think,
So
yeah. For many years, it was like this belief that if they were enough of a hard ass, that we would change, and then that didn't happen. And so,
they're
I don't know.
adjusting. I thought of the perfect title for this episode, but it's really, really bad, but it's hilarious. Two girls, one cult.
That's funny.
Come on.
Subtitle: Your teeth are like a flock of sheep. Smut.
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 Song of Solomon, smut.
Yeah.